Okay. Three, two, one.
What is up? I'm Pat,
And I'm Sean.
and this is another episode of the 6 Months Behind podcast where we, your Marvel team up characters, bring to you the knowledge that is the Marvel Unlimited app. He brings you the knowledge of the comic books, and I bring to you my years of knowledge and commentary of everything that is Marvel in my 52 years of comic book and geek wisdom. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Yeah, you bring the experience, I bring the pizzazz.
There you go. See,
We're
this
a tag team duo.
this is the week of 11/28. We have new comics this week. Some of which are ending, some of which are beginning, some of which are good, some of which are bad. And there you go.
Yep.
Yep.
If you
And
want
we're going to
to
talk. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, we got to talk about how to get in touch with us.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, it's 6months behind at gmail.com. That's the number 6months behind at gmail.com. If you'd like to visit our website, it is
www.6monthsbehind.com, where there is a story about the 15 best storylines in comics. And they are, in
Marvel
a hurry,
Comics.
Marvel Comics, Annihilation from 2006, seeing how fast the page can go, Demon in a Bottle from 1979, the Tony Stark alcoholic issue, Planet
Planet
Hulk,
Hulk.
Planet Hulk, Civil War. I just realized I forgot to plug my data line in, and I'm running off Wi-Fi.
Uh-oh.
That's all right. We'll get to it in a minute. The Galactus trilogy from Fantastic Four number 48, where Galactus still had a big G on his chest. House of M.
Yeah, I was not actually familiar with that Galactus trilogy.
It's issues 48, 49, and 50 from the original Fantastic Four series. Craven's Last Hunt.
Oh.
I've never read Craven's Last Hunt.
It's okay. I don't know if it belongs on this list.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. Days of Future
Yeah.
Past, which is a couple of issues from X-Men.
Mm-hmm. It does belong on this list, I would say.
I would say so. I got to plug that cord up. The Winter Soldier, Ed Brubaker's story from 2005.
Great story. Yeah, sure. It'll go on the list.
Daredevil Born Again from 1986. That's a great story.
Never read it.
Marvel's 1994. That's a great story.
It's good. Don't know if it should be on the list.
Don't either. Gwen Stacy, The Death of Gwen Stacy from 1973.
Yeah, it has to be on the list.
Secret Wars from 1984. I don't know if that belongs on the list, and I certainly don't think it belongs in number 3. The
Heck
Dark
no.
Phoenix Saga at 1980,
That's
and the Infinity Gauntlet is number 1. Now, the question about the list, and I'm going to put it on the podcast, and we don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this, but what's really interesting is what was left off the list. Because House of M's there, Civil War's there, Infinity Gauntlet's there, but a lot of things were left off the list, like the Kree Skull War, which was the first major Marvel crossover, first major Marvel event that lasted like 10 issues. Back in the early 70s isn't there. Secret Wars from last year isn't there. I thought that was a great story. Yes, it had its publication issues, but this is Doctor Doom being victorious and Doom becoming God. How can that not be there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a really complicated story that relies on you having read the previous 2 events that they did. You got to understand time runs out in the Infinity War to understand how Secret Wars happened.
Secret Wars is pretty good, man.
Maybe I need to go back and read it as a whole unit, I'm not saying it wasn't good. It was. I'm just not saying it belongs on the top 15.
I mean, it's hard to understand the Infinity Gauntlet if you don't read the 3 years worth of stuff that Starlin wrote up to it. Running up to it.
Yeah, well, that's true too, isn't it? And Civil War to an extent, and Secret Wars doesn't make any sense. The first one from '84.
And even if you don't understand House of M, if you don't read the stuff leading up to it,
Yeah,
I just say there's a lot of crossovers out here, and I'm not sure about this top 15. There's stuff left off and stuff put on here that I'm not really certain about. So
yeah.
I don't know.
If you have suggestions of what should be on there, if you think there's something that shouldn't be, shoot us an email. Maybe we'll talk about it.
This will be the front page of the website, and I will throw a comment up there. I will put it up there for you to throw a comment up there and let us know what you think.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I'll put my comments up there. You put your comments up there, and we'll see.
Cool.
Yes. So that brings us to the books for the week. Holy cow! How did we start with this atrocious Spider-Man 1.5?
Because we went in the order that we usually go in, and we didn't have any Avengers books. So it's off to the Spider-Man books.
Spider-Man books and the Spider-Man 1.5. Okay.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 1.5. I'm going to find my Ethernet cord. And I don't think you can talk about Spider-Man 1.5 that long because the book sucked.
Well, let me talk about it. You plug your internet in.
Okay.
So, we've kind of been trashing this book. And essentially Spider-Man's followed this guy to Cuba. Some sort of weird blood magic experiment things going on. I don't really know. I don't really care. The story, I don't think it's a bad story. I'm just aggressively uninterested in it. And it's okay, but really the only redeeming quality of the book to me is Simon Bianchi's art. The art in this book is stellar, as well as the art direction. Tony Stark's little cameo in it's pretty good. That's not bad. It's, Tony Stark being snarky Tony Stark.
He kind of makes fun at Spider-Man, which is entertaining.
He does what, Spider-Man?
Fun of them trying to do this without him.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's Tony Stark. What do you expect? He's like, he sees these heroes he's never seen before that Spider-Man's trying to help out, and he's just like, yeah, whatever, man. Yeah. How dare you think you could do this without me?
Yeah, and you're right. The only redeeming part of this is the art.
Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. That's all that's the book's really worth, in my opinion.
That's all there is to say about that. That's it. Here.
That was the only Spider-Man book we had this week. Next time we have an issue of Web Warriors, I'm gonna have things to say. Just as a heads up. But moving on to X-Men, we have an extraordinary X-Men number 10. I really enjoyed this issue. What did you think?
This was a good issue. Eventually, I'm going to quit moving around and actually stay in front of the microphone. I enjoyed this. It wasn't great, but it was very good. And I like seeing Iceman step up and be a character that was interesting. So
yeah,
there was that.
That was probably some of the most compelling things to me in this book. I mean, you have the X-Men who have gone into the far distant future to a mega world where some of the younger kids have been stuck for a while. They're battling the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and Storm is basically downtrodden. She's seen this world, where the mutants no longer exist, and she's just ready to give up. And Bobby Drake, says, it's never too late to start again.
Yeah, and I don't know why somebody didn't say to her, hey, this is like the 43rd alternate timeline we've seen of our future. So how do we know this is our future? Let's just get the eggs, embryos, and go home.
Yeah, let's just get them and go home. Old Man Logan kind of did. They talked about it a little bit, like, hey, we don't know that, or was it Bobby? I think it was Bobby. Might have been.
I think it was Bobby.
Yeah, both of them. There's a conversation of this doesn't have to be our future. We're in the driver's seat.
Right.
So then they go see, they're actively going to seek out Apocalypse, and there's an interesting little ending. But there's also a middle story. There's like a B story, and it has to do with this mutant refugee that Ileana's connected with. She has demon powers, so, they bonded. And you just know this isn't going to end well for either one of them.
Yeah, I don't know where that's going, but I thought, what is this doing in the middle of this book? But obviously it's going somewhere.
They're setting up for something. I'm certain of it. And, being Alani Rasputin, she can never be happy. So this is just going to come back to bite her. Overall, I felt like it was a strong book. This has probably been the strongest showing in the X-Men lineup, I feel like.
Yes, it has. Absolutely. And that brings us to the main 616 universe, which brings us to Captain Marvel, which I believe you thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, Captain Marvel number 5 is it's the best episode of Star Trek I've ever seen.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, if you read this book, not only does the art direction feel like Star Trek, but the plot. You have the captain, you have the snarky first mate, they're trying to solve a problem on the ship, they're under attack.
She's yelling at Puck to get the engines back online, actually the shields back
right.
online.
Yeah, she's yelling at the engineer to get the shields back online. If you told me that this was an accident, that they made this, if they didn't have Star Trek in mind when they wrote this issue, I'd call you a fool. It's clearly inspired by Star Trek and classic sci-fi television writing.
Yeah,
but
it's good.
It's really good. The art's pretty good in it, but they basically, what Captain Marvel does is she shoots herself like a missile to the ship, the alien ship that's attacking them. And they're attacking because they have the Kree star on the side of the ship. She wears the Kree star, and they want to kill the Kree. So she goes over to talk to them to keep the aliens from killing everybody on the Alpha Flight station. And she basically has this conversation with them that, the war that you want to fight has already been won. Kree's gone. Or Hala's gone. The Kree, while the Kree are still around to some extent, they're scattered and their empire is in ashes. The vengeance you seek has already been taken.
Do you understand? And this was a very good issue, and I enjoyed the development I really like seeing Alpha Flight in this issue. I enjoy what they're doing with Captain Marvel here. I enjoyed this whole issue. Do you understand the state of the Kree Empire?
Perhaps not as well as you do, but I understand that, when you've lost your home world.
At all.
Okay.
Because in this issue, they seem to be dead. In Moondragon and Devil Dinosaur.
Moon Girl and
Devil Dinosaur. Moon Dragon, Moon Girl, whatever she is now. She's possessing the dinosaur, but we'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
They seem to be a flourishing civilization. In Starbrand and Nightmask, they seem to be a struggling civilization that creates a Starbrand. I don't. Do you understand?
I think it's like this. They're a huge sprawling empire. Hala was not the only planet they inhabited, but the destruction of that planet and the leadership structure within the Kree Empire has crippled it pretty significantly. You have your bases where they're still, if Los Angeles sunk into the sea tomorrow, New York City would still be there.
Well, it's
So
not just going to be Los Angeles. It's going to be most of California is going to slide into the sea tomorrow. But that's beside the point.
anyway, you get my point. Is that things still go on. The Kree Empire is not dead; it is severely crippled. And
if you want to make you feel better, when the earthquake comes that wipes out Memphis, it's probably going to destroy a lot of Birmingham too.
Yeah, it's fine. There's literally nothing we can do about it.
No.
But depending on where you are and what your structure is within the empire, your hierarchy, your social structure, probably depends on how badly this affects you.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's an ancient alien empire. It's got layers.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to Carnage number 8.
Did you read this at all?
It occurred to me, I got halfway through it as we were discussing Captain Marvel number 8. I got halfway through it and didn't get to finish it.
Okay. Well,
amazing art, and Carnage is still after the Darkhold to figure out how to make mini me's.
Yeah, he's in Jakarta looking for that altar so that he can augment his powers and make more of himself. He meets this very short person who is
the ambassador of the Darkhold. Is that what it was?
I don't know exactly, but given the story that they're telling, these kind of stories and dealing with the elements that they're dealing with in this particular kind of genre, you have set pieces that are always present, and the
Darkhold dwarf.
Right, the avatar of the evil is always a theme. There's always going to be a man who holds power or is mysterious and is basically the embodiment or the champion of that they're dealing with here. So you've got this team that's off to stop Carnage. They're kind of being shady about what their real motivations are. Carnage finds himself in a little trouble for a moment and then works it out for himself. And yeah, we'll see. He's got the Darkhold. He's probably found the place where the altar that they want to, or that he wants to use, because he's captured that priest now. He disassembles a number of cultists with swift efficiency, we'll call it.
This is not a book for children.
No.
It hasn't been since issue 1, and it is not now.
No. It is violent and graphic, and do not let your children read this. But you're fine because you're an adult and you're already corrupt. But anyway, it's really good if you enjoy horror as a genre.
Yes.
What did you personally think of?
Holy cow, is that great art?
Yeah, I would like to know your personal opinion on the story, just because I'm biased.
It's an interesting story. I'm trying to think of an analogy. I don't like stories that have high death tolls simply for ranking up high death tolls. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think that's what this Carnage book does. So it's not, when we get to Night Thrasher, there were a couple of deaths there, and they were meaningful because it's obvious that they're chasing a serial killer. So yes, you've got a decapitation, but it was because there's a serial killer, and Night Thrasher is chasing him. Okay,
where's Night Thrasher?
Nighthawk. I'm sorry, Nighthawk. Night Thrasher.
Okay, super smart dude with a skateboard. Where I didn't see him this week.
Yeah, Nighthawk. Man, look. We've counted the concussions. Okay, it's about 17 or 18.
I understand. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I'll tell you what. We're officially going to call it 17. How about that? 17 concussions. Okay, work with me.
Okay.
Nighthawk.
Yeah.
And I just don't like a high death toll for the sake of
high death tolls.
Graphic art, which is what I feel like this is.
Yeah, brutality for the sake of brutality.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's okay.
All right. You know what was really good? Daredevil #7.
Yes, it was.
So picking up where we left off in the last issue, Elektra has confronted Daredevil. She has accused him of taking her child, and he's going, "Hey, what? We had a child, huh?" And first of all, the cover is drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz, who is something of a classic Daredevil cover artist. He's done a lot of Daredevil covers, along with Moon Knight. But the interior art is the pencils are Matteo Buffgani. I'm probably butchering that. And color by Matt Mila. And the interior art in this book is just insane.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
It is just, it couldn't be more appropriate for the character and the themes you're dealing with. The way that the way that they use the art to visualize how Daredevil's powers work is genius.
And as I believe you said, the way Matt Milla colors the artwork using the reds and the softs and the grays, it's magnificent.
Yeah, it's a magnificent use of color.
It's a magnificent work of art.
Yeah, I would love some original pieces like this. But in terms of the story, Elektra and Daredevil get into a fight. You really see Matt Murdock's detective skills here too. He's kind of got this inner dialogue thing going on in the during the fight with her, and realizes, okay, she didn't kill me, so there's something going on with her too.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Go ahead.
He finally gets her talking. You know, he gets her to say, "Look, I'm surrendering to you. Let me help you." And she does, and she tells a story about she had a kid that we didn't know about and was training during the time she was pregnant. And you know, Matt's putting it together, going, "Well, if the timing's right, could be mine." There's an interesting little, I don't know if I'd call it a twist. I'd call it a development towards the end regarding the evidence that she has that suggests that Daredevil took her child. And yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes.
Yeah, and I think this is just a 2-issue arc, so they're going to come back to this at some point in the future. But it was very good.
Yeah, I think in the next issue we're going to see something else pop up, and we'll probably have to deal with this later. Yeah, it starts a new story in issue #8 because I'm looking at the preview. But
right.
Yeah, I would like to see the continued artists here. The art in this book is by far some of the best I've seen.
Yeah, it was very good. And that brings us to something that was, I don't even know how to describe this. It's Deadpool.
Oh, they went back to 2099, didn't they?
Yeah, here's the thing. And I don't, they did a 5-issue Stark story in issues 1 through 5. And then in issue 6, I need drugs. I have drugs for this, but they make me sleep, okay? They did 1 through 5, and then issue 6 was Deadpool 2099 Part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Then they did 7 through 11, which was the Sabretooth story.
I remember your tirade about it.
And now they've done Daredevil 2099 issue 2 story Part 2. And here's the thing. The 2099 Deadpool story is not bad. It's not a bad story. If you go back and read issue 6 and now issue 12, it's rather interesting. It's got its humorous points. It's got a plot going. But in this case, I mean, we're getting them every 5 or 6 months. How are you supposed to follow this? It's hard to keep up with. It's not making any sense. I don't understand what they're doing here. I mean, it just doesn't. I don't get it. I don't understand it. So I will recap it quickly, and then we'll move on, or we'll talk about it. But Deadpool 2099 still has Wade Wilson being held captive, torturing him by making him watch CNN. She finds out that someone has entered one of her secret base, which, how do you pronounce Deadpool's wife's name? Sakura, I believe. It's actually her. It's her underground. It's her underground subway station, and it's where she's got everything. Well, that was just a distraction, so that one of her enemies could go set Deadpool free.
Yeah.
And what's really funny, if you've read Deadpool a long time, Deadpool has a Hydra agent that assists him named Bob.
Yep. Love
it's
Bob.
the Hydra agent. Well, all of Deadpool 2099's assistants are named Bob, and there's one of them named. There's one of them who's actually a Hydra agent, and then there's a bunch of them who are different characters, but they're all named Bob. And I mean, I'm counting. There's 16 of them here, and they're all named Bob. So she sends the Bobs out to stop Deadpool from being captured, and it's pretty funny. It's pretty good stuff. At the end, Deadpool is set free, and my iPad, just on top of me not being able to speak today, my iPad just went from single page to single panel, so I can't get there. Anyway, the person that's rescuing Deadpool is Ellie, who is the mother of one of Deadpool's children, and I'm not sure if it's Deadpool's 2099 daughter. I really don't know. Apparently, Deadpool 2099 is the daughter of Deadpool and Shaquilla, and Deadpool and Ellie have a different daughter.
Oh, that's an interesting development.
Yeah, so there you go.
Okay.
It's a funny book. It's an interesting book. It's just, getting one every 6 months makes the thing hard to follow. It's just.
Well, maybe it's like a B story in a larger arc. They're telling one story, but they're slow burning this other thing, and it's going to come into play later on.
I guess, man. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, me either.
I really don't know, because next issue, they're going back to something else, and I don't know what they're doing. By the way, if you bought the next issue on the newsstand, it would have cost you $10.
What?
Deadpool 13 would cost you $10 on a newsstand.
Why? That's literally a month of Marvel Unlimited for one book.
It's like a 42 page issue with Daredevil and Power Man and Iron Fist in it. Dude, it's got a $10 cover price.
Dude, you got to give me more than 42 pages for $10.
When I was putting it up on next week's, I think it's next week's shipping schedule, or maybe it's the week after. When I was updating it on the website, that sucker's got a $10 cover price. I was like, holy cow! That's why I read Unlimited and buy very few books over the counter.
That's insane. That's highway robbery.
That's what I thought. I don't like paying $4.50 or whatever it is after discount taxes. For the Civil War issues I'm buying. Matter of fact, I didn't buy Inhumans vs. X-Men this week because I couldn't bring myself to go part with the $5 to buy it.
Yeah. Okay. The Civil War trade paperback is over 200 pages, and it's $15 on Amazon. $5 more than that 42-page Deadpool book.
Yes.
please justify that to me.
We'll come back to it when we talk about the Deadpool book when it ships. But dude, when I was putting down on the website, and it's on the website so you can see it, with the alternate covers and all that stuff for next month.
Anyway,
I was just like, holy cow.
I could go on a rant about that because I have feelings about Marvel's treatment of Deadpool since the movies come out. And anyway. We'll move on to Doctor Strange number 8. I've been enjoying this book. I'm always a fan of Jason Aaron's writing. I like Chris Bocciolo's art. So you've got a winning combo with me right there. The story is also interesting. You have these invaders whose sole intention is to destroy all magic across all multiverses. And they have destroyed most of the magic on Earth. And the issue starts out with Doctor Strange literally trying to find scraps and bits and little trinkets that are imbued with magic just to have something to fight with. In fact, it gets so bad at one point, he pulls out, they're trying to locate these objects and they don't know where to go. So he pulls out a map, explains that he has magic in his blood, and using his own blood like a compass, opens a vein, squeezes some blood out onto the map, and scries the location of these objects, magical objects, with his own blood. Yeah, you're losing the war.
It wasn't Scarlet Witch. Who was another character that was wanting to surrender because they've already lost?
I don't know. I'm not entirely certain who that was. I'm certain it's one of the wizards we were introduced to a couple issues ago, when they spent like a whole issue talking about all the different wizards around the world.
Okay.
But I think it's the one from South America. I don't know. I don't remember the name.
Detective with the guns. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, could be. Anyway, back at the Sanctum Sanctorum in Greenwich Village, the Empirical are dismantling Doctor Strange's collection of artifacts. They've destroyed his library. They've destroyed or attempted to destroy everything in the house that is magical. They get attacked by the refrigerator that we saw in the first couple of issues, which is kind of funny. But the real problem is in the basement. What they stumble onto in the basement is a creature literally made entirely of pain and suffering. And that's the last reveal on the last page. And it's this monstrous entity that's just amorphous blob of mouths and eyes. And that's always good. That's always gonna.
Yeah, that's how he's been paying the price for his magic.
Right, he's been feeding this thing, or something like that. I'm not really sure,
right.
But and now it's loose, and next issue it's probably gonna wreak havoc. Yeah, it was a good issue.
Is it a monster, or does it have the magic he needs?
I was wondering that myself. Is this going to be one of those? Oh, here's this big source of magic he can now harness to defeat whatever it is he needs. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, we're 8 issues into this series now, and I've enjoyed it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. Drax number 7.
What do you think of this book?
The new villain's cool. I like her. She's neat.
Cammy?
Yeah. I kind of the pink lady.
Oh, that's not Cammy. That's somebody
no,
else.
At the very end. But I'm a little confused because they introduced her in the previous issue. Her and
Right.
Drax go toe to toe. But then in this issue, it's like they haven't met yet. Uh, it almost seems like
Uh,
this book should have come before the last one.
no, what's happened here is Drax rescued all these children from Fing Fang Foom,
Yeah.
and
Ugh.
process of getting him home. And I think this book is actually getting better. By the way,
I agree,
I
but I don't think it's getting better by leaps and bounds.
it's it's getting 10 or 20% better each month.
It's 3 steps forward and 1 step back.
Introduced Cammy, who you have to be a Drax fan and have read Drax the Destroyer series from 2005 to know who Cammy is. They've introduced Pip the Troll.
Don't know who that is. That may be part of it, is I don't know who these characters are.
So, I mean, they're bringing in people from the outlying Drax / Marvel Galactic universe and bringing them into this. But I think it's getting better. It is getting better. It is, and I'm enjoying it more and getting there. So, and what happens is Drax is in the process of taking these children home, and it turns out there's a bounty on his head, a galactic bounty on his head, and Cammy, his old friend from Earth, is in the process of trying to collect the bounty, and she does a pretty good job of it. Turns out Pip is the one. Pip the Troll is one of the people who's put the bounty on his head, and that's the one that Cammy is collecting. But Pip put the bounty on his head because Pip was trying to save him from all the other bounties that are on his head. And in the process, they get to the world that Pip is on, which apparently Pip is in charge of. You got to know Pip. Pip's a interesting little pipsqueak, pun intended. That's always just trying to manipulate people. He's just a galactic con man. How about that? And as we get to the end, there's more bounty hunters trying to kill him, including the pink character that, or the girl with pink hair that Sean was just talking about. So I feel it's improving because you're getting characters like Pip the Troll and Cammy and whoever's Cammy's new friend is. Yeah, I think it's getting better.
Okay. I think it is better than it was 3 issues ago, but I'm as probably not being familiar with the characters is not helping. But yeah, it went from dreading to read this book to, okay, I'll read this.
Yeah. So that's an improvement. Come on.
Yeah, it's an improvement.
Yeah.
We also had Hyperion number 3 this week. This story got really weird. Didn't you think so?
I thought it's been weird from the beginning, but okay.
Yeah, it's kind of not what I expected it to be. I don't think it's what either of us really expected from this book. We kind of thought we'd get Hyperion being Hyperion and not a truck driver who drives around solving murder mysteries. But I tell you what, the supporting cast in this book is pretty good. I think I like them better than Hyperion himself. The girl he's running around with the green hair, she's unique. She's a character that I think is really supposed to be the access point for the audience.
Right.
And yeah, her whole thing with the weird carnival is it's a nice little story. It takes a real weird turn with this worm thing who's a guy but turned into worms because his brother's the owner of this carnival that's after the girl, and they have this haunted house that kidnaps people and gives them abilities, and it got real Twilight Zone real fast. But yeah. Hyperion busts in and he's going to bring everything to justice, apparently.
I forget if it's in this issue or where I read it at. is what's happening here, and I don't remember where this was explained, but Hyperion is out literally trying to find himself because he was a hero.
He's trying to.
He was an Avenger, and he's always been a hero. And I think it is an issue. We're in this issue where he talks about his father and what his father taught him to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a page about it.
Right. And with what he's doing with the Squadron Supreme, he's committing mass murder. Murder, sometimes mass murder. And in the name of good, in the name of justice, in a Punisher type of way. And he's trying to reconcile what he's doing with being a hero. Is what he's doing with Squadron Supreme for the greater good, and is it necessary? And that's what he's trying to make sense of in this solo series. So I think it's an interesting look at the character. Am I really sold in the series? It's okay.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's not like the first thing on top of my reading list at all, by any means. But when I get to it in the stack, I'm not like, is there anything else here I'd rather read? I just go, oh, okay, I'll read this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad.
It's middling.
Right.
Probably wouldn't be paying for it if I were buying it over the counter in the comic book store. I mean, just
right.
Nah, probably, especially for $3.99. Keep your $4.
Yeah, it's not a bad read. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. Mighty Thor #7 came out as well this week, and it's a nice little self-contained story that Loki's relaying to these people that he's dealing with. It's a story about a feud that he and Thor had during the Viking Age, and it deals with the idea that these gods are empowered by prayer, and that when these warriors would pray to Thor before battle, they would succeed in battle. Well, Loki thought, he could do the same thing, and begins to, and he basically creates a monster, his own monster, and it's the fallout of that. I won't get too detailed into it because it's actually, I think the story itself is really good, and you need to go read it. But they used a particular particular art style to show this flashback, and it's not the most detailed thing in the world. It's impressionistic for sure, but I think it's a good use of a particular unique style of art to tell a flashback story. I wrestled in this book to figure out if I liked it or not, and I decided that I did, but it's not something that I would like to look at on a regular basis. Used in a context like this, where it's meant to portray a flashback or to tell a story, something short, a sequence, is a great use of this kind of art. How'd you feel about it?
I was not a fan of the art because it was so impressionistic. I actually
lacked detail.
Yeah, I actually had trouble reading it. And looking at the cover of our next book, which is Mockingbird #3, that's the style of art I enjoy. When you reach so far into impressionism, and like you do in Mighty Thor #7,
mm-hmm.
I really have a hard trouble enjoying the art. I do.
You have a hard time deciding what panel to read next.
Yeah,
it's hard to figure out what's going on in the scene.
I mean, that type of impressionism, and it's almost a watercolor style, to be looked at an art gallery and not telling a story in a comic book, because it makes it so hard to follow what's happening. So it's not that I'm down on impressionism. It's just not for a comic book.
Yeah, it doesn't jive with you. I understand.
Yeah.
What really helps it. Well, what really helps this art style, and I think what improved it for me, is I read these books with the Smart Panel display. So you read it panel by panel, and if you read it that way, it I think it helps because the story is guided for you. So I think it kind of guides you along by the nose a little more.
I probably should have done that with that issue. Looking back, if I had done that with that issue, because I read it page by page, and then blow up
Yeah,
the
I know you
panels I
do.
want to look at as I go. If I had done that with this issue, it probably would have helped.
I tell you what, go back and just read it 2 or 3 pages that way, and see if it helps you. Um, Something else that I thought was a nice little detail is Thor and this dragon empowered Viking that he's fighting. They're literally fighting all around the globe, and this is ancient humanity, ancient Earth, Viking Age, Bronze Age time frame here, and they end up visiting a few places and touching base with a few places, few prominent places in the world that become significant later. I mean, you see Atlantis at some point. At one point they're on the east. Well, they're on the eastern coast of what will one day be America, and you see the Ghost Rider demon, who is currently possessing a Native American chief. There are references to Wakanda and Wolverine. There's references to the origins of Iron Fist, and I just thought that was a nice little touch to the story.
Sure.
Yep, and the part with Thor lifting the hammer, he's striving to become worthy.
Well, he was worthy. He was just
No, this is before.
Right. He was worthy, but he's having issues with his worthiness then.
Right. This is before that. This is before he's the Thor we know in the Avengers. This is ancient times.
Right.
At one point, he was not worthy to wield that hammer. At some point, he became worthy, and then he lost that worthiness again.
Oh, that's right, because he's not fighting with the hammer, is he?
No, he's got his axe or whatever.
But I thought he said the hammer was getting heavier.
No. He in the panel, he's attempting to pick it up, and he barely picks it up off the base, but he says that's higher than the last time. Because we're still seeing them, it's still the flashback at that point. And I think what you're seeing here is basically teenage Thor and Loki. What we, conceptually in their, as Guardians go, this is probably what they're like during their angsty teen years. They're duking it out with these little pawns on Midgard, not really thinking of the consequences and not being worthy of their legacies. When we meet them later on in modern times, they have matured.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, I thought it was a good issue.
I thought it was a so-so issue.
Okay. So moving on to, what is this, Mockingbird number 3? Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead and give us a...
Hang on. That's
it is.
Issue. This is basically a origin issue for Bobby Morrissey. It's very close to that. There's a discussion of her childhood here, and all of this is basically one scene where she is trying to stop a young girl who's either mutant or Terrigenesis inhuman powers have developed, and she's trying to keep the police from putting a bullet in her head and killing the hostages. At least I think they're hostages. I kind of lost track.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if they're hostages or she just kind of lost control of her powers. And anyway,
I think it's a little of both.
Anyway, So this is really just an exploration of who Bobby is, how she got her powers, her skills, we should say, what she wanted to be when she grew up, and how she became who she is, and how she does what she does, how she's the hero that she is, and it's pretty interesting. It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, she really shows off her skills in this book. Um, there's a lot of commentary about what it is to be a teenage girl at her age, and even then, what it is to be one with abilities, or to even want those abilities. You know, but well, the question I want to ask is: we're 3 issues into this series. We know what happens later, and we know what's happened with the writer of the series, because she's taken this book in this particular direction. And the whole thing is sort of a celebration of girls embracing science and mathematics and creativity rather than just being, whatever the female stereotype is, the doting housewife. And it also talks a little bit about what it is to be a teenage girl, which I have no idea what that's like, but I imagine the way it's discussed in this book is not outside the realm of true. Do any of these themes that they're playing with offend you or bother you at all?
No.
Do they make you angry?
No. Here's the thing. We've discussed this before. We're coming up on Moon Girl and
Devil Dinosaur.
Miss Marvel. Now, Miss Marvel, and there's another one here. It's Miss Marvel and
Patsy Walker.
Patsy Walker. Mainly Miss Marvel.
Yeah, and Squirrel Girl for later.
Which, Miss Marvel is just, it's all about teenagers at a science fair. Okay? That's not my thing. We discussed this many times over many podcasts. That book is not for me. All right? It's not. It's got interesting character development. You've got her and Miles Morales meeting each other out of costume. But it's not for me. This book was very good. This Mockingbird #3 was very good. It explored the origin and history of how Mockingbird became who she is, how Bobby Marston became who she is. Does it make political feminist statements? Sure. Is it necessarily for me, or was it my favorite issue? No. Am I going to threaten to kill the writer or blow up the Marvel offices over it? No. That's not what normal, rational people do. But apparently enough of them did it to drive the writer from never writing comic books again.
Yeah, I mean, clearly this Mockingbird, as we've seen, we're 3 issues in, obviously has a feminist bent. And I don't understand why that's wrong or bad. It doesn't make the book bad. I like the book for it. It gives the book depth.
Yeah. I mean, it's exploring who she is. I don't have a problem with that.
No, and it's good storytelling at that. This is a good story. This is Bobby Morse being a hero and saving people. All the while doing its best to point at issues in our own society and making us re-examine them. So,
Mark Hamill is hinting around that Luke Skywalker may be gay. In the Star Wars #19 book, you have Han Solo's ex-wife and the doctors are trying to say, basically insinuating that they've had a relationship in the past, and the doctor's female. Basically insinuating they've had a lesbian relationship in the past. Yeah, it is what it is, and you don't. You don't. If you don't agree with it, you don't threaten the writers or blow them up on Twitter. If you don't like it, you just don't buy the book.
Yeah, you just change the channel. You don't have to consume it.
Just feel free to cancel your Marvel Unlimited subscription and go to Comixology and buy books there. It's okay. It's okay.
It's just a thing that I fundamentally don't understand about other people. And I think people got upset with the writer for putting a feminist bent on a female-led book, on a female solo book. And I'm going, that's what makes it worth reading to me.
And
but,
Marvel has, they've done this thing where you can't have Jason Aaron, Brian Michael Bendis, and Jonathan Hickman writing every book. So they've gone out and they've found African American writers for the African American characters. They found female writers for the female characters. They have tried to place appropriate writers with the appropriate books. And they found a writer they thought would be compatible with the Mockingbird book. And this is the direction that, and she didn't just do this. Okay, when they hired her, she pitched ideals to Marvel. When they hired CM Punk, Phil Robertson, Phil
Robertson.
Whatever his name is, Phil. Anyway,
I don't know.
Anyway, Phil Brooks.
Campbell.
Phil Brooks to write Drax, okay? He pitched ideals to Marvel. He said, this is what I'm going to do with character. She pitched ideals to Marvel saying, this is what I'm going to do with Mockingbird, okay? This is what you do. You hire creators. It's what they've done with the T'Challa. It's what they've done here with Mockingbird. It's what they did with CM Punk and Drax. It's what they've done with a lot of the books. It's what they've done with Nighthawk. It's what they've done with a lot of the books. And it brings creativity and freshness and a newness to the book so that you don't have Brian Michael Bendis and Hickman. And back in the 60s, Stan Lee wrote every freaking book. And this brings a freshness to these books.
Yeah.
And maybe it puts a spin or an interpretation on it that we don't like, but that's good. Okay?
Yes.
Maybe it brings in ideals that we don't like. Maybe CM Punk puts things on it, that I wouldn't do. Does things that I wouldn't do with Drax, but at least he's doing something. At least there's a Drax book out there for us to talk about and for us to be entertained with. Okay, at least he brought a project to Marvel and said, "Here it is," and Marvel greenlighted a Mockingbird project. They greenlighted a Drax project, and their names brought people to read it.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like it, don't read it. That's my philosophy. But in my opinion, the direction of this book is entertaining, and I'm enjoying it.
I totally agree.
And, to anybody who disagrees with that or thinks I'm wrong for that, well, you can't see it, but there's a middle finger for you. And everyone who harassed this woman on Twitter because she dared to write a comic book. Anyway, moving on. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur number 7. Not going to spend a ton of time here, but at the end of the last issue, this girl's fear has been she's smart, she's a scientist, she knows she has the gene for an Inhuman. She encounters the Terrigen Mist. She's in a cocoon for like 2 weeks. She finally emerges from the cocoon. Doesn't seem like anything's different. Life kind of goes back to normal. There's this interesting little story about a nerdy little Kree boy on a faraway planet. That's weird. She goes back to being Moon Girl and stopping low-level crime, and then has a weird encounter with her T-Rex that is her friend, and that's where the issue ends. I'm on board still. I mean, at the end of the last issue, I was getting a little bored with it, but now I'm back into it.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, it
actually, it's was better than it has been. and I'm interested to see those last couple of pages where they go with that, because you learn what her power is, you learn what they're going to do and where their direction of the book's going to be, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Where are we at now? I've lost my notes.
Miss
Marvel,
Marvel number 7.
Yeah, like you said earlier, this whole book is nerdy science teens from different high schools competing at a science fair. And what makes it funny is that Kamala Khan is on one team and Miles Morales is on another. And they're competing directly against one another. And it's the whole issue is just conflict between the two of them. And things get interesting because Kamala knows that he's Spider-Man, but Miles doesn't know that she's Miss Marvel. The experiment in the name of competitiveness, the experiment gets out of hand. There's an explosion, and they have to put their costumes on and save the day and save these people. Nova shows up because he was nearby and heard the sonic boom. Bam, you've got the 3 young Avengers there.
Yes, also known as the Champions.
Yeah, they're putting together the Champions. And I'm really enjoying the team building and character development between these particular 3 characters. I feel like these 3 characters in particular are really, Marvel is really setting them up to be the future of the Avengers.
Well, they're setting them up to be the champions.
Well, yes, but eventually, we're seeing this happen with Marvel. They're keeping these old characters around in their own way, but the characters are going away. They're the cows and the capes are being passed to the next generation. Logan is dead. Yes, you have old man Logan, but he's different, and you've got Laura Kinney being Wolverine now. Bruce Banner is no longer the Hulk. Amadeus chose the Hulk. Bruce Banner's not going to be the Hulk.
You sure?
Yep. Captain America, you've established a new Captain America. We have a Lady Thor. She's been around for a while now. You have a different Iron Man coming up in Riri Williams that we've heard about. Another Iron Man. So the characters aren't necessarily dead or gone, but they're passing their mantles on to the future generation. And Marvel is doing that very deliberately and doing it in a very deliberate way so that the fans don't lash out at it, even though they have on a few occasions. But they're writing really good stories while doing it. And I really think these 3 are, in the future, they're going to be characters that 20 years from now we're still talking about.
This is something Jim Shooter wanted to do in the mid-'80s, by the way. Is do away with all the old characters and bring in new characters. Because he felt that all the stories had been written that you could write with the older characters.
Well, it's been an effort by comic book companies for 20 years now, or more. An example is that's how Beta Ray Bill wound up picking up Thor's hammer for about 6 months. Right. It's how Dick Grayson becomes Batman every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's how, Superman passes his mantle on to Superboy, and that never works out. And, they have tried before to get rid of, to pass these mantles on to other characters, and they failed at it. It hasn't worked. But Marvel has found a formula that is working.
We'll see.
I would say Miles Morales is a very popular character. He's a very popular Spider-Man. There was a vocal contingent of fans who, when they announced new Spider-Man movies, wanted a Miles Morales Spider-Man. And I think the pattern was laid with Miles Morales, and that's the pattern that they've used to pass these characters on to other other characters, if that makes sense. I mean, Hank Pym's Ultron now. You know, that's an interesting little twist. Hank Pym's not Hank Pym anymore. He's Ultron, but he's still around. Anyway, what'd you think of the book, Miss Marvel #7?
Oh, Dave, you know what I think of books like this.
Yeah, teen BS. I know. Okay, Nighthawk #1. Give me a rundown on Nighthawk #1.
Nighthawk. I'm trying to remember his real name. Kane. What? Anyway, he is
Kyle
out.
Richmond.
No, that's not his. Well, that's his real name, but he changed it to something else.
Oh, Raymond Richards. Anyway,
he's in Chicago, taking out arms dealers and meth labs, and
yeah, in a violent fashion.
In a very violent fashion. And this is a very political book in a very subtle way, maybe a not so subtle way, because while he's doing that, corporately, he's also trying to save a set of projects because another gentleman wants to buy them and level them, and he wants to buy them and refurbish them and keep them for the homeless.
It's not just a project; it's the Killian Fields in Chicago.
Yeah. So he's trying to basically save his community and save his people, and he's an African American, and he's trying to save his community and save his people and keep these guns from getting into the hands of his people. And again, we go back to the Squadron Supreme issue where they use any means necessary to accomplish what they want. And if you blow up the warehouse and kill everyone in it, well, that's okay. And that's what he does in this issue. It's a good issue. There's also something I don't understand, which is a murder that the police are investigating. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's a decapitation, and apparently it's the fourth person that a serial killer has killed, and he's interested in finding out why that serial killer is killing these people. And that doesn't go anywhere. Apparently it's going somewhere next issue. And it's a good book, man. It's a good issue #1. It's obviously leading somewhere. We've got a villain revealed at the end. Good cover to it. There's some really good alternate covers.
Yeah, Bill Sienkiewicz doing the cover again.
Right.
Yeah.
There's some really good alternate covers to it. Yeah, it was a good book, man.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it myself. I was looking forward to it, knowing it was coming, and it delivered.
Yeah,
it was exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yes.
I tell you what really wasn't what I wanted it to be was Hellcat #6. I've kind of enjoyed this Patsy Walker series, and it's not to say that this is a bad issue, but it wasn't the strongest showing that they've had. And I mean, they can't all be home runs, so whatever. But essentially, Patsy Walker, She-Hulk, Tom, and Ian go for a day at the beach at Coney Island, run into some villain.
Oh, Arcade's not a Z-list villain.
I don't even know who he is.
He's a B-list villain.
Okay. Tell me about Arcade real quick.
Arcade is an old X-Men villain. Came around X-Men, the 120s maybe, Uncanny 120s. And basically sets death traps for the heroes. He's pretty entertaining.
Yeah, and this was a fairly entertaining book. It just wasn't the strongest showing of this creative team. And they duke it out with that guy. Of course, they win. And then Jessica Jones shows up at the end, and that's a neat little twist. Otherwise, it was all right. I'm not gonna demote it to the shred list just for one mediocre issue. Yeah, it was okay. How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, it was all right.
It wasn't, dude. I hated that art. If I
I
want
know
that
you
art,
do.
I'll go read. I'll go read Archie.
It's funny
Yeah,
because that is Archie art. That's an Archie artist doing that book.
I don't doubt it for a moment. Don't
Yeah.
doubt it for a moment.
Yeah. Patsy Walker, Hellcat number 6, gets a resounding meh.
Yeah.
Also, Red Wolf number 6, this series is ending. Thank God.
It wasn't a bad ending. We finally discover in issue 6 that Red Wolf actually has powers. That would have been something nice to know in issue 1, maybe,
Or even 2.
or even 2. It's kind of thing that might have helped you buy the book. It's just this thing just never worked out. I mean, this was a character that they carried over from Secret Wars. It just never worked. It just never worked. And he's an interesting character. It was an interesting plot. Just never, just never worked out. There's nothing more to say about it.
Yeah. It's over now. If you really care to read it, it's there. You
Yeah.
can read it in its entirety.
Yes.
What was much better was Spider-Man and Deadpool number 5.
Yeah.
For those who haven't been keeping up with the book, Deadpool has been hired to kill Spider-Man. The funny thing about that is he doesn't know that Spider-Man and Peter Parker are the same person. And he's been palling around with Spider-Man like they're just best friends. So that's weird. At the end of the last issue, Deadpool blows Peter Parker's brains out with a pistol.
Yes. And he's dead. And Deadpool goes looking for Peter Parker in hell.
Yes.
And is really looking forward to it, and takes his wife.
Yeah. They're going to torture his soul, which is their date night.
Shakira, they're looking forward to a date night, torturing Peter Parker in hell. Problem is, they can't find him. So she has him resurrect Peter Parker, kills him again, and is certain they'll find him in hell this time. And
Yeah, they have a discussion
Deadpool
about why you would do that, and his comment is, you understand the concept of, have you tried turning it off and back on again? It's the opposite of that.
Yeah. So they go to hell again, and Peter Parker still isn't there, and Wade Wilson, Deadpool, has to come to grips with the reality, with the assistance of his wife, that Peter Parker really isn't a bad guy, and because he isn't in hell, he's somewhere else, and the whole time he's not in hell, he's not in heaven either, and his soul has been misplaced by Mysterio, because Mysterio hijacked his soul on the way to hell. So then Deadpool has to go help free his soul from hell, or from Mysterio, I should say. If this sounds complicated, well, it is a little complicated. So Deadpool pretends that Spider-Man sent him to help Peter Parker get free from Mysterio. Of course, Deadpool doesn't know that Peter Parker knows that he didn't ask for help.
Is
Spider-Man.
Yeah. Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
So Deadpool sets him free. Peter Parker wakes up from a really bad dream knowing something isn't right. And Deadpool is irritated because he killed what he thought was a bad guy who was actually a good guy.
Yeah. Also, about a third of the way through the book, Mephisto shows up, and that's intriguing.
Well, yeah, it's help me out. What's the name of the story? Last Days? Not the Last Days.
One More Day?
One More Day, yes. So he and
Yeah,
Peter have a relationship.
Yeah, and anytime Mephisto shows up, something's going to go down.
Yeah.
So here's my question. I've known that Mysterio is in a coma. He's been in a coma for a while. Clearly he's alive in this realm, where his consciousness is. But while he's getting beaten up by Spider-Man, he talks about how this isn't how this was supposed to go, and he was promised something. Does it sound like he made a deal with some other entity, and was that entity Mephisto?
Apparently.
Okay, because it was a little vague, and I wasn't sure. So is this somehow Mephisto trying to get to Peter Parker.
Apparently, yes.
Okay, that's okay. All right. Anyway, Peter Parker's coming back to life, and that's good because all the Spider-Man books have been really good, and I'd hate for those to end.
Yeah, so before we move on to Starbrand and Night Mask number 6, which is thankfully the last issue of that series, Amazing Spider-Man with the original Peter Parker sold 78,000 issues, and Spider-Man, where'd it go? Yep, with Miles Morales sold 48,000 issues. So apparently people like Peter Parker more than they like Miles Morales.
Well, they had never met Miles Morales. It took time for Miles Morales to catch on. So go look at what that book was doing in sales when Peter Parker...
Dude, Miles Morales has been around for like 5 to 10 years now. It's been a while since they killed Peter Parker in the Unlimited Universe.
It's been 4 or 5.
I mean, 5. What did I say? 5 to 10? 5.
Yeah. I'm saying go look at the sales of that book later on before his original introduction.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I don't think Miles Morales is quite as popular as you think he is, but okay.
I'm not saying he's better than Peter Parker. I'm just saying he's a very popular Spider-Man.
Okay. Dude, it's number 28 on the sales list, which is ahead of a lot of things. So,
I mean, you know.
I'm just saying, you know, Amazing Spider-Man is still a top 10 book.
Yeah, as it should be. Starbrand and Night Mask number 6. So they've developed this story of like the Starbrand and Night Mask for all these different worlds. And the Earth Starbrand and Night Mask encounter the Kree Starbrand and not Night Mask, but some other
whatever she is.
Some other cosmic entity.
I'm so uninterested in this book. I don't even feel like explaining it, but go ahead.
There's some teenage drama. It's weird. Interesting thing is this is dealing with eternity and the state of the universe, which is something you've been investigating for some time.
Yes.
Which is the real hook of this. It's the real meat of this series, or was. And
it was. They threw it away in issue 6.
Well, it wasn't selling, so they had to end the series.
Yes.
Otherwise, I feel like we would have gotten a little more.
Yes, it feels like they took this whole series and just tied it up with issue 6 and wrapped a bow on it and said, "Opus were canceled."
Yeah, pretty much. I think it really could have gone somewhere if they'd given more than 6 issues, you know, but I understand you got to cut stuff. Anyway, this book had a lot of potential. I was actually beginning to like the characters, and you know, maybe they'll show up in other stuff, but whatever.
Yeah, when you make a hero and a villain have to stop fighting because they're sexually attracted to each other, that's just pretty bad writing.
Well, it's supposed to be like the fail-safe for the Starbrand mechanism.
It's bad writing.
I didn't say it wasn't. I'm just explaining the concept. But it's silly.
Yeah.
Moving on to Totally Awesome Hulk number 6. Give us a little rundown of the book.
I was trying to find Starbrand and Night Mask on the sales list, and I'm at number 258 in the list and still going.
Ooh.
Oh, there it is. 289. Hold on. 289. It sold 5,216 copies.
That's about what I would have expected.
That's why it got canceled. There you go.
Yeah, it's literally not financially viable. You're losing money if you're publishing a book that's only selling 5,000 copies.
I mean, it's right below. It's below the Spider-Man Deadpool reprints, American Monster, Adventure Time, Ice King, Snowfall. Dude. Disney Darkwing Duck, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sales figures it was putting up.
Yeah, you're talking, 4th string.
Yeah,
bringing up the rear.
totally awesome Hulk number 6. This book is there. The Hulk is there, not the Hulk. Thor is there. Mighty Thor, Lady Thor is there.
Hulk is also there too.
Yes, Hulk is there, as is Hulk's sister, and they're
Yeah.
investigating why he is serving the Enchantress and why he is doing her will and why he has trashed a kingdom where they had all the Uru metal stored. I believe I can pronounce that correctly.
Yeah, you did.
And turns out he's got a little hickey on his neck that the Enchantress left for him, and he doesn't know how he got that. And
magic hickey.
A magic hickey, thank you very much. And they go after the Enchantress, and the problem is they have to figure out why he can't control his rage. And it has to do with the death of his parents, and he and his sister sit down and have a lovey-dovey talk, and, about what happened with his parents and why he's mad and why she's mad. Once they have this talk, then he can control his rage, and then he and Thor beat up the Enchantress and her army, and then everything's right with the world.
Yep. There you go.
There you go. It's actually a pretty good issue. I didn't do a good job summarizing, but it's not a bad issue. I just I was hoping they would do more with the Amadeus Cho and the Hulk. I think there are better things they can do with Amadeus Cho and the Hulk than what they're doing here.
I think they're going to get there.
I hope so.
Amadeus Cho being the Hulk is what's gotten me to read the Hulk. I've never been a big Hulk fan. I've never really read Hulk. You've always been the Hulk guy. And if that's enough of a hook to get me reading the Hulk, then, they're doing something right.
Well, okay.
We'll see where it goes.
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, because I just have this sinking feeling that Bruce Banner's not coming back for a while. Not as the Hulk.
Yeah, you're wrong, but okay.
Okay. Well, all right. Uncanny Inhumans number 9.
This isn't bad.
It's not. It deals. If you didn't read the last issue, Medusa and Johnny Storm discuss the status of the relationship while attempting to keep a building from collapsing on the top of them. As you do. At the very end of that book, Crystal finds them while trying to rescue them, while Johnny Storm and Medusa are swapping spit. Which, if you didn't know, Johnny Storm and Crystal dated for a while. She's not happy about this. And this whole issue is the fallout of that event.
And basically what she's not happy about isn't that they're dating. It's that A, they didn't tell her, and B, Black Bolt and a few other people know and she doesn't.
Yeah, because they didn't trust her enough to tell her.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they're having this shouting match with each other about it. They suddenly get transported to some other world by some aliens who want to make them fight to the death for some reason, and they attack. They act totally nonchalant about it. They're just like, "Oh, one of these things. Okay, how do we get out of this?" And then they spend the rest of the issue saving everybody on board this battle world that they found.
Yeah, they're the last ones out. Crystal saves them, and then they all hug in the end, literally. And that's,
literally all hug at the end.
And that's the end of the issue.
Yeah, and apparently everything's fine now.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it was a dangling storyline that they had to resolve, and it's not bad. They'll move on now.
Yeah, they'll move on to another story now. But it was a nice little 2-issue interlude of like, hey, let's get an update on this situation.
It's a filler till Civil War arrives.
Yeah, pretty much. You're just stretching.
Yeah.
Either way, I thought it was a decent issue.
It wasn't bad. No, it was, and we say it's a filler, but it was a good filler, and it they did have to resolve this storyline, so they did it well, and it was good, and
It was a filler issue that didn't feel like filler.
right, yeah, so it was good.
Yeah. What else was good was Weird World number 6.
So you say,
Uh, resolving some of the storylines that's been happening in this book. Turns out this, if you haven't been following along, it's too bizarre for me to really recap in any sort of way. But this is the last issue, so just go read 1 through 5 if you're interested at all. But Morgan Le Fay is trying to get back to Earth so that she can save this person that she cares about, which was an interesting development for someone like Morgan Le Fay. She's traditionally portrayed as evil, and you actually sympathize with her a little bit here. Because, in a way, her and Becca are trying to do two similar things. They're trying to get back to Earth so that they can do the right thing for a loved one. Now, Morgan Le Fay is using dark magic and deception to do this, so let's not, let's not be too empathetic towards her. She's still an evil witch, literally. But, it's the villain thing like we talked about last week. They have a noble goal, but they use bad methods to get there. Evil methods to meet their goal. But
can we just pause for a moment and discuss the fact that the last we saw, all the Infinity Gems were destroyed, and now, we've learned that this isn't a Wuxen seed. This is an Infinity Stone on page 7. We've now introduced the Infinity Gems back into the universe.
Yes, I was about to bring that up. And if you look at it, it's not whole. It's fractured. It's as if it's being held together with magic glue. These are it's shards that have been reassembled.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, at least that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah,
but
still, we've reintroduced the stones.
Yeah, well, the last thing we saw in Secret Wars was Black Panther holding an Infinity Gauntlet with the Infinity Stones. It was a different one from a different universe, but who's to say that those stones didn't make it over to the Prime Universe when all that went down? It's entirely possible that the Infinity Stones are back out there again.
Isn't that interesting?
I thought so.
But I was wondering what became of them. At least something good came out of this Weird World number 6.
You're just so down on it. I really enjoyed this series, and I'm sad to see it go.
I know you are.
Yep. But they kind of leave it open-ended. Becca has not escaped Weird World. She still is trying to get home. Her and Goletta, the Wizard Slayer, are teaming back up again. They're going to continue their journey. So I don't think this is the last we'll see of them.
No.
It was a nice little send-off.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And the cover is really nice.
That is a nice cover.
Yeah. In fact, I enjoyed the art all the way through the series.
Yep.
Let's see. The last entry that we have in Marvel Universe books this week is Squirrel Girl number 8. And I always enjoy this book because it's nice and lighthearted and funny, and it's just so often with these books, like we were talking about earlier, the writers have ideas of what they want to do and what stories they want to tell, but that also has to be tempered because oftentimes they're working with characters who are involved in larger overarching storylines, and they have to with that. So they don't always get to just choose the direction of the book that they really want to go in. What you have with books like Squirrel Girl and Patsy Walker is just an unfettered creativity by talented writers. This is the kind of book where the editor looks at a writer and says, look, go nuts, have a good time, make it funny. And they do, and it works. It's really good. It's not serious at all. It's very funny, but it's nice after reading really serious comic books.
Yeah, it is entertaining. I mean, it's funny, and as we've discussed, it's funny. It's the Archie and Jughead of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, it is, but I think it's done really well.
Yeah.
In this particular issue, it starts out with Squirrel Girl and the New Avengers fighting a giant ant. They defeat this giant ant by Squirrel Girl having a conversation with it. She can talk to squirrels, also ants. Who knew? And they, deal with the giant ant in whatever way that they need to. It's no longer menacing the city. The real meat of the story here is that Dorian Green has this crush on another character in the book by the name of Chipmunk Hunk. Yeah, like you didn't see that coming. Turns out he's seeing someone else. She's super not cool with it. So her and her friends decide to set her up a dating profile, which is by far the funniest thing about the book is their struggle to create a dating profile for her.
Every time they do something like this, I just remember her in Wolverine.
I thought about that too when I was reading this. I was like,
and they presented it as canon a few weeks ago, so it's not like it didn't happen.
Yeah, definitely. But you go, well, that guy's dead, so you can't go back to him. But she proceeds to go through the trials and tribulations of and the pains of setting up an online dating profile. The portrayal in this book is accurate. The portrayal of dating in this book is a satirical representation of what modern dating is like, but that doesn't mean it's not necessarily an inaccurate depiction of what modern dating is like. This is what you see here is silly because it's in a comic book and it's a super powered squirrel or a lady with squirrel powers, but it makes the point clear that this is what things are like these days. I can attest to that. I'm a young person who is currently in the dating world. But yeah, it's a really funny issue. She goes on a series of dates with guys, Fancy Dan, who's a D-list villain from, I think he's an old Deadpool villain. Is that right?
Spider-Man villain, man. He was like in Spider-Man issue 2.
Okay, Spider-Man villain, whatever. A couple of guys who don't like.
Right, man.
Well, okay.
That's what you have me for.
Yeah, I was about to say that's your end of the deal. She goes on a date with a super criminal. She goes on a date with a guy who doesn't believe in superheroes. She goes on a date with a Sentinel. That doesn't turn out really well. And to make it worse, Mole Man attacks at the very end. And she's just had enough of it. And she's about to body slam Mole Man when the issue ends. Which is just, Squirrel Girl fashion. But, she also goes on a date with Johnny Storm. Which leads to the question, is Johnny Storm cheating on Medusa?
I was wondering about that.
When I read that panel, I thought, that's not how that's supposed to go, but it would be very like Johnny Storm to do that.
We would assume that the chronology of this series, it takes place somewhere around the time before or after he's dating Medusa. Let's say before.
Okay, we'll say before. Anyway, solid issue, funny, had me laughing, made my day better by reading it. The writer commentary at the bottom pages is consistently this book. Yeah, it's good. And when I can like things like Nighthawk #1, which is, like you said, politically engaging. It involves a lot of issues. It's a deep story. But I can also appreciate stuff like this that's just there to make me laugh.
Yeah. We appreciate it all, which is why we enjoy Marvel Unlimited, where we get it all for $9.99 a month.
# shameless plug.
Yes.
Moving on to the Star Wars books. We had 2 of those this week. Star Wars #19. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the episode. It's the resolution of the storyline where they're keeping Dr. Aphra in this prison. Bounty hunters show up, start releasing prisoners, trying to kill Dr. Aphra and everybody else. Leia is leading Dr. Aphra and Sarna.
Dude, I don't know. I couldn't remember when I was trying to discuss their lesbian relationship.
Yeah. Who is Han Solo's wife? Ex-wife? Something.
Temporary wife.
They were a
in
thing
a
once.
Jam and had to get married to get out of the jam.
Yeah, I think that was the real scenario.
Yes.
And there's banter back and forth between her and Dr. Aphra the whole time. There's some implied relationship there. Han and Luke make a heroic entrance to try to save them and are immediately captured by the bounty hunter. So now Princess Leia has to save them, the 2 of them as well. I thought the reveal, and we didn't give our disclaimer like we normally do, but we do. We're going to discuss spoilers here. I thought the reveal of this bounty hunter being Enid Bray from the Star Wars annual last year was a really cool reveal, and I didn't see it coming. But it gives some weight to that annual. And if you don't know what it is, go back and read it. It's a really good story worth watching or worth reading.
I'm glad you knew who it was.
Yeah. Well, there's an editorial note that tells you who he is.
Yeah, I saw that, but anyway, go ahead.
Long story short, Princess Leia gets them out of a jam. They're evacuating the prison. And it doesn't seem to be fully resolved. It seems that there's more left to tell in this story. But I'm not really sure what it means, so I won't go into it. Anyway,
But it was a good issue.
Yeah, solid as always. I mean, you're 20 issues in now, and the whole series has been really good. I mean, even the issues that weren't home runs were still high quality. If you're, there's not a whole lot to say about it. If you like Star Wars, read this stuff. It's very good.
Yeah, it is very good. It's very good Star Wars stuff, and it's very good writing. Period.
Yep. And then we have Obi-Wan and Anakin #5, written by Charles Soule, who I'm a big fan of. This is the last issue in this book. They're attempting to escape from this planet. They received a distress call, found themselves in the middle of a clan war on this planet, and are attempting to escape. Not a whole lot to say about it other than it resolves the whole issue of Anakin's doubts concerning the Jedi Order. You know, we see in the series that Anakin, as young as 11 or 12, was having doubts about whether he belonged in the Jedi Order. And at the end of this issue, we see that, you know, he's recommitted himself to the Jedi Order. Of course, that doesn't necessarily last for more than a few years, but yeah, it was a nice little wrap up to the storyline. I'm pretty sure this was the last issue, because at the very end they advertise a Han Solo book. Anyway, another really good, solid Star Wars read.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm looking forward to it because I intend to finish the book and the series, I should say. And that's been an interesting series. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. That pretty much does it for all of our books this week.
Yeah, I want to discuss the dump this week.
Okay.
Because first off, there's some stuff from the 70s, 60s, and 70s that they've been missing, and Marvel Team Up's one of them. The Defenders are one of them, and they're working to get those filled. So I'm glad to see a bunch of Marvel Team Up books dumped in there. Secondly, the Marvel Fanfare series was a print of, I believe it was the Epic line. It was a high gloss, high issue series. And if you look, there's 2 or 3 issues here, but if you click on it, you get more Marvel Fanfare, and there's some good stories there. There were stories that were told inside the Marvel 616 universe, but it was on the high print Marvel Fanfare line, and I didn't realize that these stories were here, that they had come out yet, until I saw these 2 issues. So there's 26 issues in total, and so far we've got like 10 of them, but hopefully they'll continue putting those out. And then lastly, you got this Howard the Duck. Where'd that thing go?
Oh yeah, I
Howard
saw
the
those.
Duck Treasury Edition. Now, a Treasury Edition was these things that they sold. They were, honest to goodness, almost poster size. They were like 18 inches wide by 24 inches high. Okay, it wasn't the size of an normal comic book. It was gigantic. Okay, that's what a Treasury Edition was. And this is the first Treasury Edition that they've actually published. If you click, there's nothing else in there. But the Treasury Editions were so cool because this was the stuff. This is where you got like a lot of them were done together with DC. That's where you got like Muhammad Ali boxing Superman. It's where you had the first DC Marvel crossover because Spider-Man and Superman first crossed over in a Marvel Treasury Edition. And neither company knew if it would work all right because they took this, when comics were selling for like 25 cents, they put that thing in a Marvel Treasury Edition that was literally 18 inches by like 24 inches, maybe bigger than that, and sold it for like $6. And had Spider-Man and Superman crossover in one of those Treasury Editions. So I was really excited to see the Howard Duck Treasury Edition, and there was a lot of them. And some were reprints, but some were really original and good. And I'm hoping they'll put more of the Marvel Treasury Edition books on Marvel Unlimited. And then there's the Marvel Premiere, and if you look at Marvel Premiere 38, you actually have a Weird World story just for you.
I did see that. I read it actually.
The Marvel Premiere series was just kind of an ongoing series that lasted for, I don't even know, a decade, where they would just kind of present different characters and present characters who maybe couldn't carry a book on themselves, but they'd want to get an origin issue in, or they would want to get 2 or 3 stories in about it, and that's where they put it in Marvel Premiere. That's kind of what Marvel Premiere was used for, And so if you click on Marvel Premiere, there's a lot of issues of those in there, and there's some interesting stories in it. So it's good to see Marvel dumping some of these, what would you call them, B-list titles, because they're, it's not the Avengers, it's not the Fantastic Four, but they're interesting titles, and there's a lot of history in these titles, and it's good to see them putting these things in Unlimited.
Yeah, you got your classic stuff there.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, origins of other characters.
Yeah, and it's not that it's not relevant. I mean, this is a very good Howard the Duck book. So, some of this stuff is relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, what was your favorite book this week?
Do I got to pick a favorite book from this list? Either the Daredevil. That's easy.
That Daredevil book was really good. It was fantastic, really.
Yeah, that Daredevil book. Maybe Nighthawk #1, but you got to go with Daredevil.
Yeah, I'm going with Nighthawk #1. It was a book I had anticipated, and it delivered on everything. It was everything I wanted it to be. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give mine to Nighthawk #1.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I had a classic read lined up this week, but you had a lot to say about what was in the dump, and those are good classic issues. So I'm going to say there's your classic read this week, and I will save mine for next week. In fact, I think it'll be a little more appropriate next week anyway.
There you go.
Yep. Well, here we are at the end of another episode. Pat, do you have any wisdom for our true believers before we go?
Yeah, I'm looking at lots of it. I'm trying to decide. I may have even used this one before, but it's apropos, so I'm going to say it again. Two things are infinite. This is Albert Einstein. Two things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity. And I'm not so sure about the universe.
Always appropriate, Albert Einstein.
Yes.
See you guys next week.
Peace.